Moving now to the Bombers. So they've had obviously a lot of inclusions over the off-season with Ben Mackay, Todd Goldstein. Who else have they had?
Xavier Dersma and Jay Gresham as well. So
yeah, and they've all made this team apart from Gresham.
They should all be in there. All four. Starting with the back line, obviously Ben Mackay is going to be that new leader in defence, kind of working with Jaden Laverde, who you think gets a starting spot as well. Like I don't think they should be relying on just Mackay and Ridley. Like Ridley flourished this year in being that third option, and probably didn't get as much of a look in 2022 as that kind of third tall. Like they do get some height and some advantage in Mason Redmond, but he's probably a lot better as that dashing defender. They also get some run in Andrew McGrath and. Dyson Heppel still, I think, will be a best 23 player, but there's certainly going to be some opportunities for someone like a Nick Hind to kind of take that spot.
I think there might be a bit of pressure on Heppel as well this year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. If there wasn't this year, but he was sub and kind of out of that starting 22 at times. But I think when their dashing defenders is probably where they're lacking the most. Like they kind of looked to fill those reinforcement roles with Archie Robertson, Lual at the draft, but whether those two are ready, I wouldn't have thought. So are they going to look at maybe a midfielder, which they've got heaps of, as probably a player that can start at half back? Do they look at a Sam Durham? With Xavier Dersma coming in, does he move from the wing to half back? Do they look at an Elijah Sardis who they probably want to be getting senior minutes into, but he probably isn't playing an inside role with all the players ahead of him. He can play on the wing, but maybe rotating at halfback might work for him. Matt Guelphy missed a bit of footy this year and has developed nicely into a pressure forward, but he started his career as a defender and probably could be one that switches back if they want more options there. For their talls, as mentioned, it'll be Mackay and Laverde, but Kane Baldwin's there. They want to probably see Zach Reed nice and fit. Same with Nick Cox. So I think it's a pretty clear starting back six. And then it's just a matter of, if we've got injuries, who's kind of filling those gaps. And I think Nick Hind might be a nice sub option for them. Yep. They probably just want a Jake Kelly and a Zach Reed and a Kane Baldwin really pressing their case at the lower level to get in. As mentioned, midfield absolutely stacked. So we talk about Dersma coming in probably on the wing. Jay Gresham, half forward midfield option. Todd Goldstein probably gets in if they're playing a 2-ruck system. You look at their young midfield talent: Elijah Stars, Ben Hobbs, Archie Perkins, Jai Caldwell, Sam Durran, Nick Martin. Add Dylan Shield into that mix as all in that support group for Darcy Parish and Zach Merritt. So they're the kind of two, and a bit like we mentioned with the Crows, they really want to find that third player. So is that going to be a Perkins? Is it a Ben Hobbs? Can Dylan Shield kind of bounce back to the player they want him to be after a year kind of riddled by injury? Does Nick Martin make a move into the middle? Really good on the wing for them, but if they've got Durham and Dersma, maybe he could kind of slot into a more centered position. So an abundance of midfielders. Add in, do they use Jake Stringer through the midfield at all? Can Nate Caddy, if he's getting a look, be used as midfield? Unlikely given just how many they've already got to deal with, but you never really know. And then the ruck setup is going to be really interesting. Obviously, it comes down to how some of their tall forwards are firing, and we'll touch on that in a sec. But do they run a 2-ruck system again with Draper and Goldstein probably, and whoever's not rucking is resting forward as a target? And they had Andrew Phillips play, I think it was the most of any rucks this year at the Bombers with 20 games. So if Draper can stay fit, it's probably going to be him and Goldstein. If not, they've got Nick Bryan there knocking on the door. Vigo Vicentini probably isn't getting a look unless it's, the three ahead of him are all injured. So that's going to be a big question as well, is kind of that ruck situation. And that'll add to the forwards. So as mentioned, Peter Wright and Cole Langford have both had 50-goal seasons at one point over the last 2 years. So they're kind of the 1-2 piece for Brad Scott's forward line. And it's kind of that third, are they having a ruckman as that third target? Is Nate Caddy ready to play AFL footy next year? Is Harrison Jones finally going to kind of be able to overcome some injury and form issues and be the player that has all that potential that I think a lot of Essendon fans have been waiting to see? Adding Jake Stringer as kind of that, medium forward and might play a similar role to Nate Caddy. So it could be those two that are kind of, battling for spots or a similar role. And if Stringer's injured, as we have seen over the course of the last couple of years, Caddy's probably an easy choice to fill that absence in. As mentioned, Perkins, Gresham, Hobbs, Dersma, Martin, Corwell, Durham, all those midfielders can probably play a bit of forward at some point throughout the year as well. Jai Menzies flourished. I think he kicked the second most goals for him this year. And a lot of that came in the absence of Matt Guelphy. So there's probably only one spot for those two. And then they're probably ahead of, Tex Wanganeen, the Davey twins, and that small forward crop. So they've got great depth, the Bombers, and it's kind of what they wanted. That's why they had that busy off season of recruitment. It's just going to be interesting to see, how they're finding extra defensive run, what their ruck options are, and who that third midfielder is going to be.
Yeah, I think also just with that amount of list turnover, that amount of best 23 players coming straight into the side, how long it takes them to gel. You think, especially with Ben Mackay in the defence, even though he's going to have the whole preseason. But you think back to a Stephen May, it still took him. He was straight into best 23, but it still took him a few weeks and part of the year to really gel with that back line in the system. But yeah. Again, lots of great additions for Essendon. I'll be really curious to see where they come. Obviously, I think they should be aiming for the bottom half of the 8, but who knows?
No, for sure. No, where they were at points this year, they've got to think that they're a top 8 challenger.
Yep.
Especially busy off season where they're only adding best 23 players to their list.
Yep.
Absolutely have to be thinking they're in that window.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, and